on, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Huskers Live at Nebraska Football at the voice of college football. As always, I am Justin Adams, your host here every single Tuesday or Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it may come out to be. Again, still looking for a lot of feedback on the best date and time, but nothing really stands out too much that people have kind of offered out to me. So again, if any times or dates work better for you than the current Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central, just let me know in the comment section on Twitter, wherever, and I have the ability to move this show to make it a little bit easier if need be. So, and we are 18 days away from football, guys. So like Justin here says, 18 more days, right? Kind of crazy. We're at that part of the season where it's just starting to drag a little bit, but we'll be 2 weeks out before we know it, and then it kind of starts to speed up, I feel like, a little bit, and then that night before is just kind of the grind. But I do have some stuff coming up fun stuff that I kind of want to plan potentially coming up on the season. Y'all can let me know your thoughts on this. I did put a question on my X account asking if people would enjoy doing a hangout with myself and just a bunch of other fans, if whether it be Zoom, or I'm trying to see how many people would want to join. It wouldn't be recorded or anything, wouldn't be a live stream. We would just be in there chatting Husker football amongst a few of the subscribers, fans, whoever. I just feel it'd be a good time to just go in there and chop it up a little bit with everybody, some other Husker creators as well. So let me know y'all's thoughts on that as well, because I do want to plan that coming up. But we got a packed show for you, a little bit going on in terms of Matt Rule shutting down the practices. I'll get into that just a little bit off the top. Tony White spoke today. We had, James Williams at the podium, Rob Voracek at the podium. So we can take away some of the stuff that we got from their interviews today, kind of dive into my thoughts on what they had to say. And if you haven't seen it yet, my schedule prediction was out yesterday. I'll touch on that a little bit, and kind of the polls that I had mentioned Nebraska making an appearance in earlier this week. So that being said, let's go ahead and just run through this. Oh, and if for those here, drop a like on the stream. Just helps people kind of get in here, helps YouTube get it out to a little bit more people, really helps me out. So I appreciate it. Jackson, what's going on, man? Andrew, good to see you, man. What's up? The BA Coaches Show in here. Good to see Coach BA in here. Practice shutdown, no concern. We're going to get it right. 18 more days. Can't freaking wait till football. Let's go. Thursday, 3 a.m. Yeah, we're still in that 3 a.m. time slot with Coach BA there. So, so let's go ahead and just get into the close scrimmage thing here real quick. So I'll go ahead and just pull up real quick and play for you kind of what Matt Rule said, just for those who haven't heard it, and then we can just kind of go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. Let me know if y'all can hear this fine. If y'all can't hear this, just drop it in the comments. If not, I'm going to assume you can.
Parents come. We love when former players come. We want high school coaches come. I wanted the players to have like this space of like, no one's watching. Let me just go play. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can say what you want. Like when your mom, your dad, your sister, brother's there's an extra little something. And, I've had a lot of guys mention that to me. Like, hey, it's sometimes it's hard for me when parents are watching or this is watching. So I thought just the two scrimmages, we would shut it down. Coach Osborne came, and no one had the guts to tell him to leave. So, and I certainly didn't. But I thought it was, I thought there are some things like where we are right now, and again, even the way I did this scrimmage, I did it very much like we did it in 2019 at Baylor, which I know doesn't mean much, but like you have a veteran group creating situations as opposed to, hey, who's going to win, right? Like I think we're so competitive that I don't need that anymore. Now I need them to like win a play, and all of a sudden, hey, it's 4th and 3 at the 3. Can you snap into it? And so just, I wanted to create a lot of different situations, and I didn't want them to be focused on, hey, did we win this? Did we lose this? I want them just to play that rep and stay in the moment. And that's part of my process of us getting to be a team that doesn't, struggle down at the end of the game, that stays in the moment, was just trying to create that bubble today.
All right. So just my takeaways on that. So there was a little bit of an overreaction from it yesterday, and I think this is much ado about nothing, as a couple of you do as well. So my take on what he said here is, when he's talking about, closing the practices off, when he's talking about putting them in situations, when he's talking about, the pressure with the lights being on them, or the family being there and them talking to him about it. And a lot of people have kind of misconstrued that to are they, how are they going to do in the game? How are they going to do, when the family's watching them at the game, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a little bit different where we're in a situation where we're talking about a situational style of practice, right? And this isn't a normal game where you have all the pomp and circumstances, you have all the people around there, right? It's not just specifically your family, whoever watching, but it's a little bit different. Like when he said it's not about just necessarily winning or losing, it's about more so getting the reps right, right? Playing loose, playing free, but getting the reps right. When you're worried about who's watching, right? If you're playing a little bit tight, you're going to make mistakes. Again, and they want them to practice these things the right way. They want in these scrimmages, they want them to work these things the right way. And the only way for them to gain that muscle memory and kind of gain that, that football acumen and just be able to kind of identify these plays that need to be made on the field by running through these is for them to be fully focused on the play ahead of them. And that way it becomes second nature to them, right? They're just trying to drill these things into them before the season starts, throw them through these different rings and situations. And what he was talking about, like he wants to be that team that wins at the end of the game. Well, that's what they're trying to do this for. So it's a little bit different when you have a more intimate audience of, a few friends and family out there watching you while you're in more of a simulated practice type of environment. It's a scrimmage, but it's like almost kind of a simulated practice type of environment. And it's just a whole different world when you're out there on game day, and it's a lot different when you have 95,000 people as opposed to 30 people of people close and personal. But it's very, very commonplace, right? I think Coach BA had a comment here. What I'm going to say it from firsthand knowledge last season, he also closed scrimmages for high school coaches as well. 99% of all major college football programs. Exactly. And I think the reason this became a storyline is because it was spoken about too, right? Like we're at that point of the season where the smallest things are really starting to stand out, because I get it. We want to make sure that this team is finally prepared to in those big moments. I know there's a little bit of more of a spotlight on Nebraska because in those big moments we folded in the past, right? So we don't want to hear about a team that's necessarily folding under the lights or under pressure. But that wasn't the way I took it. I just think it was one of those things where he felt they were in a place where they felt they were good, didn't need that, like you said, didn't need that added pressure. So that way, in these last couple of scrimmages, they can really do things the right way and they can walk through things the correct way without having to, be distracted by who's up in the bleachers. They can focus in on what they're being coached, what they're being taught, and what's happening in front of them. And so again, like y'all said, I think this is a little bit much ado about nothing. So yeah, I don't really see any concern for that there. I'm going to continue to run through your comments here. Any concerns about Tony White addressing the tackling issue in practice? I'll get into that a little bit when I go over Tony White's press conference. So stay tuned for that. Makes sense to keep them closed. Never know who's there recording, willing to sell the foot. Yeah, that's another thing too. Yeah. Yeah, the visibility, of course. Yeah, that always plays a factor. Absolutely. Told a coaching buddy, would we want people at our practices? Of course, we would. Would we want video getting out? No brainer. Yeah, of course not. Absolutely. You also have to remember the day before they had press open practice, a week before they had practice open to all public. We're Grab. What's up, everyone checking in? What's up, Wilson? Appreciate you joining here. Appreciate it, Coach BA. You're too kind. Some people hate on rule just to hate on rule. Yeah. And I don't know necessarily people hate on rule unless they are. I just think it's more so that this team needs to make a jump this year. And I think everybody feels such pressure for them to make that jump that to hear something like that this close to the season, I think everybody right now wants to hear that we're ready to go. We're fired up, but this staff has been a lot more transparent and authentic than staffs in the past. So I appreciate the fact that they're not going to just come up here and just say, yeah, we're fine. We're going to be great going into it. We're feeling ready. We're feeling fired up, good to go. No, like they understand that there's still these shortcomings and they're not going to sit there and blow smoke up their butts, 2 weeks out from the season. They're like, this is what we need to work on. This is what we need to work on, because the only way for it to really get fixed is to admit that the problem's there. We don't want to get to the season and all of a sudden we have tackling issues. We have this, that, and third, and we got these problems. So also, I'm going to drop this right here in the comments. So if anybody would like to, actually, I kind of messed that up. If anybody would like to join the conversation, I'm going to drop the StreamYard link into the chat here. So essentially the way this works is if y'all want to click, hold on, let me pull the link up here. If y'all want to click into this, you won't need video, right? Audio itself would just be fine. And if you want to come on, ask questions, just chat, whatever, click that link right there. Like I said, you don't have to have video, just audio. So if you want to click on that link and jump on and just say what's up, or ask questions, talk, give your opinion on things, just hit that StreamYard link and I'll pull you in here. So what's going on, Wilson? Hope you're having a good evening. 18 days away, but who's counting? Yeah, we're all counting. Keep them on our toes. Though people have criticized rule no matter what he has said or done. Yeah, I feel like that's definitely going to happen over time. As a fan, I feel so much pressure this year. Oh, Wilson's hopping on. All right, let me go and bring him in here. What's going on, Wilson?
What's up, man? I gotta ask you a quick question.
Yeah, what's up?
I just saw a little bit of a headline before I hopped on the live stream, but we were talking about Elijah Judy. I can't remember when it was, about a couple weeks ago, and like how we've been underrating him this entire offseason. Sua Lafodu is another name on that defensive line that like keeps coming up. James Williams mentioned him today. Terrence Knighton mentioned him, just that big nose tackle Polynesian. So I'm gonna hop off real quick, but I want your opinion on Sua Lafodu and some of those other guys in that D line because I'm getting pumped up, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You said you're going to jump off. Why answer?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
See ya.
Yep, later, man. Appreciate it. Hold on, let me redo this here. There we go. Yeah, so Sua Lafotu, that was, like you said, James Williams mentioned him. James Williams was talking about the defensive line as a whole and kind of how this defensive line, Terrence Knighton's really using this defensive line room situationally. And so he was talking about how, he's the cutter. And then I forget the other name he mentioned. And then he said Sua is like, and then he couldn't remember like what pitch because he doesn't know baseball that well. But what it seems to be from like hearing them talk and hearing the way he kind of broke it down is it seems like that, there's so much talent and each one of these guys specifically is good at each one of their areas, especially James Williams was talking about how he needs to get a bit better as a run stopper as opposed to, he's going to be a lot in pass situations, stuff like that. He just doesn't have kind of the bulk, as he mentioned, to really be a big time run stopper. So I think the biggest thing for me with this defensive line is really when we're hearing these new names come out, and I find it interesting that the defensive line is the one that's kind of kept these names close to the vest the most, I think. But when we have these new guys sneaking in the rotation and that we haven't heard in a while, that raises the question to me, like, what do we not know about these guys? Like, what are they seeing behind the scenes with the Sula Tofus and those guys that we haven't seen that's kind of setting them apart? And, what I think that we have from this defensive line room overall right now is we have a bunch of guys, even at our starters, right? We have one guy who's really good in the run, one guy who's really good in the pass, right? But the question becomes in developing some of these younger guys, who's going to be that guy who's the most balanced in both? It sounds like, again, like in this one, he was mentioned Sua is just kind of like one of those, again, situational type of guys. But in hearing that, it's one of those things where it's just like, the defensive line this year is going to be so versatile and used in so many different ways. And not only that, they have, you have your Ties and Ty Robinson being able to kind of coach these guys up and help these guys. And you have Ty Robinson who comes from a mindset of being on a team that lost in an old culture and a team that is should hopefully win in this new culture. Right. And so not only that leadership that they're able to get from a guy like him, from these young guys as they develop, they're going to be able to sit there and they're going to be able to know that like Ty can give them lessons on, hey, like, here's what I didn't do in my development early on. Right. And I feel like a lot of that, these players coaching players is really adding into the development of these guys, because that's why I think we're hearing some of these other names coming up. I think there's this element of these guys policing each other, coaching each other, that is really helping some of these guys come along a lot quicker. And I think that's why we're starting to hear a little bit more of these under the radar names. But what Terrence Knighton has done with that room and just the way everybody talks about him, even outside of that room, it's crazy. And that's why like guys like Sua, like he probably has developed him to the point where he's a player who deserves mentioning, right? And so yeah, I just think overall this defensive line room, there it's going to be one of those things where they kind of like build off of each other, right? As like they're talking about advancing the older guys and then bringing the second level guys up with them, and that's very important because there's a separation there, of course, when you're talking about these advanced guys, your ties and stuff like that. Well, coming off of last year, they were talking about coaches being more coaches, and this year players being more coaches, and now we're finally starting to see that. And I think that's really too what's kind of causing some of this development a little bit deeper down the depth chart in these rooms is like we do have a standard set now, and we have players coaching these younger players, right? We have the coaches coaching these younger players. We have second, like multiple coaches coaching each position group now. So um, I think we're going to start to see more of a snowball, and that's kind of how that depth is going to develop, right? We're going to start to see a little bit more of these names peeking out, and as these guys go through the system, they're going to help each other out. They're going to coach each other, and they're going to start being able to bring each other up much quicker. So, but yeah, what can we expect from him exactly? I don't know. You know, where he's going to specialize and what they're going to use him in, that would be very interesting to see, or how much they utilize him, because that's another thing is how as deep as this room is and how much of a rotation there can be, how much are they going to rotate them to try to make sure that everybody's getting their due, and everybody, but also you got to keep your top guys out there. So but I appreciate you bringing that up, so I didn't forget to mention Sua there. I appreciate the question, Wilson. Appreciate you hopping on, man. Mike, what's up, Mike? I appreciate the $10, man. Any update on the German player? No go. So they did mention, actually, James Williams mentioned today talking about how he's 6'8", wears a size 20 shoe, which is crazy to me. He just said he's a large human, but he's so raw that he's probably not going to play this year, maybe not next year. We'll see. He's a grown man, like he's a grown man in terms of age. So, he's got a developed body. He's got that strength. He can pick up on things a little quicker. He's athletic. He's long. So and just the fact that he had to pick up on football, in 2017 he started, right, and took 2 years off, right, and he's playing at Division I university. So his football acumen's there. He can pick up on things quick. It's just going to be a matter of how quick and getting his body ready for the physicality of college football, American football, as opposed to it being played in Germany, the style of play, the cultures, the work, and all that stuff that goes into it. But the guy has done nothing but play the game at a high level. He's very solid in terms of his fundamentals, and they're just going to try to bring him along to speed to get him fully playing game speed and in game shape. But outside of that, the tools that he has, the sky's potentially the limit. And the good thing is with this deep defensive line room, he does have a lot of guys to learn from, and can pick up on a lot of things from these guys, from these highly talented guys too. So I'm happy that he's in a room of experienced guys and a lot of talent. Jackson is on the line. I'm about to pull him in here. Ty, Nash, Jamari, Lenhart, James Williams, Hufkin, Kai Wallen, Prince Will, Keona Davis, Lafotu. Yeah, it's insane, bro. Like, I think the biggest surprise to me was how quickly Keona Davis got onto the radar of the coaches and just how big he is, right? Like, I think that surprised us all. So I'm really curious to see Keona Davis, of all people, and will he get out there in this rotation, and how much, and what can he do at such a young age? Because he has the potential to be one of the better pass rushers at this university if he continues to develop at the rate he is. So we're going to bring in Jackson, friend of the show, Jackson Johnson, and friend of the Voice of College Football Network. What is going on, Jackson? How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Just keeping an eye on Cornhuskers Live and the biggest 12 on the Big 12 at Voice College Football. How you doing today, man?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you always supporting, always the first one in here. But our buddy Jackson's an Alabama fan. So, Jackson, what's been going on with you in the football world? Are you excited for the season, I'm sure?
Oh, I'm all set. I'm just waiting for week 0 to come out already. I'm waiting it out for August 29th to come. Come on, August 29th. We don't. I know it's 16 days, but make it come faster.
What's your take on Nebraska this season? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, for those that have looked at the top 10 surprise teams post on X at the Voice College Football, I put in Nebraska as one of my top 10 surprise teams. I believe they could get it done. The first half of the schedule humongously helps. It's going to help tremendously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I mean, like week 2 against Colorado. I mean, Colorado's defense is a disaster, and I'm just going to wait and see what happens with them. But I could see Nebraska getting like a 9-win season. And I saw where the Voice College Football account was talking about some teams that can make that 3-win jump. Nebraska is one of those teams that I believe can make that 3 to 4-win jump.
And for those that don't know, talking about the +3, -3 that he's talking about in the wins, right? So, I don't know if we've asked this on this channel before, but just the question of how many teams, if y'all had to guess, would make an improvement of 3 wins over the previous season. You know, how many out of all of them? And the answer was, was it 26, Jackson? I think it was.
Yes.
26, right? And so
maybe a little higher.
We wouldn't think that 26 teams would make a jump of 3 wins, because when you're looking there and you're trying to predict the 26 teams that could make a 3-win jump, you're having a hard time trying to find them, right? And that's what he's talking about. When he's talking about picking the teams to make the 3-win jump, because 26 teams, I think, from 2022 to 2023 made that jump. And I'm not sure what the average is, but it's pretty high. It's higher than a lot of people think. So that's what he's referring to when he's talking about that +3, -3 there. So anything else, Jackson? What did you what were you gonna say?
Well, and I was gonna say, like, what's your record prediction as of right now for Nebraska?
Good question. Because I actually had a record prediction on the channel the other day, and I'm not sure if y'all got to see it. So my record prediction, I had a floor, a ceiling, and then kind of a realistic expectation, right? My floor was 5 and 7, right? And somebody had an issue with my floor. Apparently, they were like, "What's wrong with you? I wonder about you sometimes." But a floor is a floor for a reason. It's a catastrophic failure, right? So, you know, saying Nebraska is going to go 5 and 7, I don't think is outside the realm of possibility in a catastrophic failure situation. I don't, because we've seen the catastrophic failure year after year. Do I think that's going to happen? No. Do I think there's a likely any shot that'll happen? No. My realistic prediction, I was between 8 and 4 and 9 and 3. I'm kind of 50-50 on the USC game. I do think the fact that the USC's defense, you know, Nebraska's offense is kind of the question mark, and USC's defense is a question mark. So Nebraska's kind of biggest weakness plays into their biggest weakness. It'll be interesting because, you know, Miller Moss being the new quarterback there, how is he going to look? I think he's going to be very good, of course, but that defense got to come along. So, yeah. So on my video, I did 9 and 3. 9 and 3 is my realistic. But I'm between 8 and 4 and 9 and 3. Depends on the day you ask me.
Well, that game that's going to be a teller for the future of Nebraska for me personally is the Nebraska-Wisconsin game. Because, like, the last time Nebraska beat Wisconsin was on September 29th, 2012, unfortunately.
Why you got to come in? I
know.
But it's become a yearly tradition. That's why, like, somebody's asking how am I predicting us to lose to Wisconsin? Well, I mean, Fickell's a good coach, and also we haven't beat them once.
Yeah.
We beat them once. We haven't beat them more than once. So, yeah.
But I think this year it can get done. I mean, like last year was close, but no cigar. But I think this year it can get done.
Yeah, for sure. What's going on at Moonbot? Won't hear anything from him. It's too much depth. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm sorry. Just running through the comments here. Let's see. Jackson. See Jackson getting some love here. Jackson's one of the few SEC fans I like. I love that. I hope we don't let you down. Exactly. You see, Jackson's one of the real ones. Jackson will give us credit. He won't just hate on us.
I won't be hating on anybody. If I'm hating on anybody, it's because they're hating on me first.
BA coaches say, yeah, exactly. My prediction was 7-5, obvious potential to win more, but saying expectation low to be pleasantly surprised. Also, last season we said it's just make a bowl. Yeah, and I have no problem with somebody saying 7-5 or something like that, just because, again, a lot of fans are in prove it mode, right? And it's completely understandable. I just think there's a lot of metrics that point to Nebraska's favor, but we've had metrics point our way before, and it hasn't gone our way. So I think all of those. What was your prediction? Did you have one for us?
I've got them at 9-3. I believe this year is the year where Nebraska finally gets that win over Wisconsin.
Love it. Love to hear that.
But there's a price to pay, a loss to Iowa.
Well, all right. Well, I was going to say as long as it's not the Colorado, but Iowa's going to hurt. Yeah. So I picked us losing to Wisconsin in mind, just so I didn't have to pick us losing to Iowa. So that's
that USC win's going to be. I mean, that USC law. I flip flop between like Nebraska, USC. So I was like, I gotta go USC on this one.
Yeah. Nebraska Rascal says, let's hate on Notre Dame.
Well, I mean, Notre Dame can't win the big games to save their life.
No, that's
unfortunately for them.
All right, Jackson. Well, do you got any other questions for me?
That's about it. And thank
right,
you for having me on, Justin. I'll be seeing you later, man.
Man, I appreciate you hopping on as always, man. Thanks, Jackson, for everything you do, man.
All right. Y'all stay safe, stay cool, stay away from that heat.
Yes, sir. Catch you later, man. All right. Always a good time with Jackson on here. Mike, I want to say big thank you to Mike for the $10, man. Really appreciate that. Super chats are on at all times. I don't like asking for super chats. I'm really bad about that. But just know they're always on there. If y'all do want to help out and donate to the show, it really helps me out here. So I appreciate that. All right, let's get back to where we were in the chat. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up here. My source says he's got 2 years before he probably gets the field. Judy's focused this year. My wife and I are in Jag binge watch date right now. So I just watched tonight. She's way cuter than the rest of y'all. I don't know about that, but I mean, she's better looking than me, I'm sure. We need guys like Wistrom, fairly Jackson, always a legend. All right, cool. Sorry, I'm just trying to run through y'all's comments here. I do want to get into a little bit of what we were talking about, what they were talking about in the press conference. So curious about Hufking because of how it will affect the recruit world and why the future having a foreign pipeline would be interesting. That is very interesting. And that's one of the things that I'm curious to see is how the game develops over there. Now, I think we're going to probably start depending on, if they do well, if any of them do well, I think we're going to finally start to see a lot more of at least kind of what Nebraska did where, he was out at the camps. They offered him at the camp and stuff like that. But I do know one big part of that is Matt Rule's kind of mindset on really having that developmental style of program and just understanding that, physical tools and athleticism can have a ceiling, but just overall skill set doesn't. So if he can find a guy who makes the physical attributes and is athletically gifted, then he's going to bring him into the program. So I'd be curious to see how many other programs would take on a raw prospect, especially when we get down to the 105 scholarship limit too. That's another thing is how all that's going to factor in with the amount of players that you can have on the team. Our team's going to be willing to be able to take a risk and go kind of on a player out there, who's going to need more time. Now I know they wouldn't necessarily count against the 105, but what are the other rules in place there? But I think very much so, like as the game starts growing over there and they start kind of seeing that develop, kind of like the NBA, we saw in the NBA where more and more people started coming from overseas and stuff like that as the game develops over there. So probably helps our new DC actually has them tackle in practice. The coaches are louder than the music. I think I know what you're talking about there. No, not Iowa. Yeah, exactly. Originally it was 8-4. There was going to be a big letdown game, so we lose a close game. We shouldn't. I think USC would be beatable. I think on mine, I was trying to go away from trying to say. I try to take away historical trends out and try to just say hey, just because we've dropped a couple games, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to do it this coming year. However, to your point, there is a bit of a piece to that because it's a cultural thing, right? There was a cultural involvement in that, and that's why it kept happening year over year. So yeah, it'll just become to a matter of whether we have fully broken out of that losing to a team that we shouldn't lose to in a close game and in a tough battle. But I think this is the team that can finally break that pattern. I think USC will be beautiful, but I think they will be better than most think. Agree, Jackson. Exactly. Drink a keg of Kool-Aid. USC doesn't have their all-world QB to pull him out there anymore. Yeah, Miller Moss is good though. I am higher Miller Moss. He's no Caleb Williams, of course, but Miller Moss he's not going to kill you in a bunch of different areas. What he's going to do is he's going to stick to kind of his intermediate pass game, could use to get some more arm strength, very accurate. But yeah, he could be good, and that late in the season, he's going to have a little bit of time to develop. But again, at the same time, so will Dylan Raiola. So I just like how their weakness plays into our weakness, and I feel like Nebraska's offense will take more of a jump than USC's defense. D'Anton Lynn is their new defensive coordinator there, very good defensive coordinator, but I just think they need a little bit more time. They do have some athletes and good personnel in there. They were giving up 34 points per game last year. So I do think that they can probably jump up maybe into the top 60s in terms of defense out of the 100 and something that they were ranked last year. So it'll be curious. It's because I don't think Nebraska is as far away from USC as a lot of people might necessarily think. So I like to see a Husker recruiter travel to the globe. That's my next channel, bro. I'm going to be in Turkey doing recruiting updates and scouting. Everyone's so excited for season finally hopes when it ends. Love the players and staff. John Butler so excited about. All right, so let me go ahead and get back into the press conference stuff here a little bit before we move forward any further. So let's get into what Tony White was talking about now, and because we had Tony White, we had James Williams at the podium, Prince Will, and Elijah Judy. So let's go ahead and start going through kind of what Tony White had to say in my takeaways. So when they were talking, he was talking about the situations, right? And what they're doing right now is just trying to like what Matt Rule has said, right? Situational type of things, getting them ready for game action, getting them up to speed on everything, kind of getting them flying around a little bit better, but still making sure that they manage the loads properly and make sure that everybody's coming to the season healthy. So that is health is, of course, being a huge factor in this. But James Williams, one thing I will point out about the health, James Williams did mention, the improvements that he saw in terms of the actual recovery, nutrition was mentioned and stuff like that. So the new recovery facilities, James Williams, even just talking about year over year, has seen an improvement, because talking about last year, about 10 games into the season, he said he hears about the rookie wall that team, players have in the NFL. Well, he had kind of like a freshman type of wall where, he got, a few games under his belt, and then all of a sudden he started feeling, he said by the Maryland game, he started feeling like it was taking a bit of a toll on him, a little bit more of a toll, like, because James Williams, you look at him, he's 6'6", 250, and you wouldn't say he's small by any stretch, but he's a very lean 6'6", 250, right? He's there's not a lot of bulk to him. He's quicker and he's longer, but there's not a lot of bulk to him. So as he was talking about those wear and tear hits, they kind of add up a little bit more and more on his smaller body. Whereas you got a guy like a Ty and a Nash who are, they just got a little bit more meat on their bones. Those guys are going to hold up a little bit better. So James Williams was talking specifically, and the reason why I thought it was interesting for him, because he's one that has to focus a lot on recovery because of that. He's like, the other guys can maybe do 80% while I'm out there. I have to give 100% to do what they can do in 80% just because of that difference. And so one thing that it was good to hear is it just, at least in that sense, we kind of got a feel for what that recovery kind of new area looks like, and just kind of how the players are feeling about it. And because we talked about this offseason, but it seems like it is making an impact even on the guys who are just kind of, trying to feel better, and even in the offseason, we're starting to see some of that payoff. So it was good to hear that as well. Singleton, they said he's getting back in the groove. Now his knee's fine. He's flying around, making plays, laying hits as he was before. Marquise, he said looks like last year's Marquise after his knee. Now, one thing was interesting to note, because we went on this. We did a discussion on Generation Red pod with Ken, as you see right there in the chat, Ken Micone. So we did a episode with him on the depth chart, right? And I can't remember who had the starting linebackers. Can't remember who had who where, but talking about Javen, John, and Giff in the middle. So when he was talking about just listening in the order he put these things. So when he was talking about kind of the guys in the middle that are performing well, he mentioned Javen Wright, John Bullock, and Giff. Now, John was mentioned a few times, right? And I didn't know if he was going to start or anything like that. However, I think we're getting indication that like it might be one of those things where he kind of is that mindset that these coaches want, and it's a matter of like whether the coaches, because sometimes you'll have a guy who may not have the same ability as another, and then on the sidelines, like we're sitting here saying like, oh, like this, he's the much better player. I think he should play. However, this coaching staff takes so much into mindset and leadership and stuff like that. I'm curious to see how that linebacker position rolls out and who ends up kind of being full starters there. I still like Stephon Thompson as my guy. But they're still kind of talking about how Stephon Thompson needs to come along a little bit more. Now, does that mean they had a higher standard for him coming in, already having played with Tony White at Syracuse? Or was there a higher standard for him coming in? Because they constantly talk about the improvement. And so I'm wondering if this is kind of like a higher standard they have set for him where he still has yet to get to that advanced bar where they think these seniors should be. And hopefully that doesn't impact his playing time or his ability to start. But because he's just not, I'm not hearing him mentioned all the time with the top guys, which makes sense because, I mean, he's newer to the program, but it's just learning, kind of like with Sierra Wright they talked about, because Sierra was the same way, right? They talked about the different standard and have him learn these ways, but he's still out there making plays, right? Stephon Thompson, same thing, right? Just got to get him. It's different at Syracuse. The way they practice, how physical they are, how much of a grind it is, how much they put on these guys mentally to kind of callous that mind, build that mentality. It seems like it's taken them some time to get used to. So hopefully Stephon Thompson will be good to go. But I just wasn't sure if we should take anything away from just kind of how they've been speaking about these guys and what orders and stuff like that. So, but he's talking about how those guys, running around, playing well, communicating, playing fast. Said Sierra Wright still making plays and just challenging them mentally and physically right now and just making sure that they keep everybody kind of as healthy as they can. Now, when talking about the second cornerback spot, I've been a Bly Hill guy since we got him. I love Bly Hill, 6'3", very long, rangy cornerback. Then you have a Sierra Wright, who's a little bit shorter, 6 foot, right? Great football acumen, great football IQ, not quite as rangy, not quite as long as Bly, which you out on the outside, you definitely want that longer 6'3" frame out there. But, Sierra Wright right now would probably likely be the cornerback 2, in my opinion. But it did seem like when Tony White was talking and they were talking, they're rotating everybody through there. So he said, we're rotating all the secondary guys through there. So who knows? Over the course of this, we might see a little bit more depth added to the cornerback room, but I think it's so dicey right now in the defensive back room. They don't have a lot of flexibility to move too many people around. Just the nature of the fact that we're running a 3-3-5 defense where you have 5 defensive backs on the field, right? So at the same time, you have numbers, right? You have a lot of defensive backs, but at the same time, you are also rolling an extra starting defensive back out on the field than a normal team would, right? So you have to have extra depth there. So that rotation becomes in a little bit more, imperative and trying to just make sure that these guys are still practicing their position that they're going to be playing out there and getting the feel for that, while also trying to make sure that we have reserves for the cornerback 2 spot in case of catastrophic failure, because the one thing that we need more than anything is Tommy Hill to stay healthy. And from there on out, hopefully Bly gets healthy. It doesn't sound like he's fully back yet. I would imagine hopefully he's back, I would say hopefully a week and a half, if he's back at least able to do some stuff a week and a half out and get back to full strength. Maybe he play week 1. I don't know what they're going to be doing with him week 1. I'd be curious to see. But the closer it gets to the UTEP game and he's not in action, the less likely it is that we'll see that. But I'm hoping he's back for that game, so at least we can get him out there and see him get some reps against UTEP before we head over that Colorado game, because that's going to be all hands on deck for sure. So, all right, let me try to come into the comments a little bit more. I think it's safe to assume at least with 6 to 7 inside linebackers significant reps in 2024. Yeah, they're going to be rotating them all. We have about 75 defensive backs, and we need all of them, Dion. We need every single one of them. DBs are going to hunt like wolves this year. Second string will step up as well. Yeah, I agree completely. I think the leadership in the safeties, especially, that is going to be huge for the rest of these defensive backs. I think they have a lot of guidance, a lot of leadership there, and I do think Butler is an upgrade at that position. I think he's a great coach. So it wouldn't be so bad if I watch TV, but I wouldn't watch all the channels at all. The question is, who does White trust to be the 11 guys on the field on the third down and key moments of the big games? That'll probably be determined as we go through the season, because as we've seen with this staff before, it's what do you do when you're on that field, you know? And again, they're going to give opportunities to play through mistakes, but there's going to be a shorter leash this year. Last year was a lot of the coaches, less the players. This year it's going to be more players, less coaches. As Rule mentioned last year, the accountability falls on the players now. So expect shorter leashes than we had last year. But he is going to let people play through mistakes. So we'll see, and that'll kind of hopefully the guys they roll out there from day one are the guys that are going to be able to get that job done, though. And I think they've done a good process of being able to kind of figure out based on, you know, these little tests they do and winter mat drills, you know, getting them going out to stuff that they don't necessarily, let's say they don't want to go to the women's basketball game on a Saturday night. No offense to the women's basketball game. It's just an example, right? On a Saturday night. But the ones that went, they got the points, right? Those are the leaders, the ones who are willing to go do the stuff that they don't necessarily want to do, but they're leaders. So they're going to do it anyway, right? And I think those are the guys, those are the 11 that they're going to trust on the field no matter what. And those are probably the guys that are going to be the best shape to get it done. So I live in Lincoln, it'd be cheaper to just go to the games and pay for cable. Yeah, at this point, absolutely. So, all right, going back into the tackling. Now, Nebraska, I think you mentioned earlier, ask a question about the tackling. Now, when we're talking about tackling last year, what the team did well last year is you would see we'd get a hat to the ball, right? You get a person to the football, stand them up, and then you would see every single player running over to help make that tackle, right? You'd have gang tackles left and right. We know under Frost, the tackling wasn't very good. If y'all remember, even up until the Georgia Southern game when he was fired, right? That next week, whenever he was let go and they were starting to ask them, what are they doing to kind of help this defense kind of at least make some small changes in the short term that are going to be able to help this team possibly win some games in the short term, because, you know, you can only do so much in a couple week turnaround. So, you know, what they said they did there, I think it was Bill Bush said they're teaching them to just be gap sound, right? And just fundamental tackling techniques, right? And so fundamental tackling was basically gone from this program. And that was evident in the fact that he literally had a slight improvement in just teaching guys to fill their gaps and to play their roles and play their responsibilities. Just to be in the spot you need to be in was something that they needed to learn in that process. So I think right now when we're hearing this staff talk about tackling, I think it's just this high standard, whereas last year it was, we know what we have to work with. Let's see what we got on the field, right? We're going to teach them the proper ways. But again, it's a lot of getting to know your guys in that first year. It's a lot of, and you can implement a lot of things there, but they're still getting to know you. The players still getting to know you. They're not fully playing 100 miles an hour for you just yet. And so when he was talking about, so when he mentioned the tackling, right? He said, you want to see basically the things you practice show up live on the game, right? And he said, we just let them play ball and it didn't show up like it needed to. He said, we want to be a great tackling team. Situational football and reacting is where, you know, that's where they're putting him in. And Dvorak described it as they were used to thudding, right? And basically just thudding means just like playing physical, like just laying a big hit, right? Not necessarily throwing your body into them or anything like that, but they're making sure that like when they make contact, they feel them, right? But what he was saying that also should translate. That should translate when the lights come on. And this is another thing that was going into the practice, right? I think this has to do with it a little bit because when he said, but that should translate. They were doing things a little differently when the lights came on. And so when it came to that, I think what that stems from is those guys were out there trying to make a big hit, right? A big play, a big like wow moment, as opposed to just sticking to the basics and the fundamentals that they normally know, right? Which is how to properly wrap up and tackle. You can hit all day, right? But you want to make sure that as you lay that hit, you're getting your hands in the right position to be able to wrap up, right? Or you're using your leverage in the right way to be able to take them down. So I think it was more so just in this scrimmage, I think it plays into the whole factor of like the family being there, right? I think they were trying to make just too big of a play, maybe trying to lay that big hammer hit, and they were just steering away from their fundamentals, which also was my indication of why, like, potentially, they don't want them practicing these things the wrong way. So if you can get everybody out of there and just have them practicing these things the right way or going through these scrimmages and doing things the right way, then they're more likely to do things the right way in the game. So again, I think the tackling issue, I don't think it's going to be too much of a tackling issue throughout the season. I just think it's one of those things where they have these guys at a real high standard right now, and I think it didn't translate in the scrimmages the way they wanted it to. So that's my take on the lack of tackling too. So what's up, John? John DeAnimo getting here, like number 19. Yeah, go ahead and drop a like if you're in here. If you like what we're doing here, please drop a like. It helps me out, and I don't like asking for them. I'm excited to see more advanced traditional passing concepts this season. Yes, it'll be nice to have offensive weaponry. Like last year, one of the main reasons why I wasn't hard on Satterfield was because Satterfield, he had to work with what he worked with. The personnel was personnel, whether he wanted to run his offense or not. He had to run with what he had, right? And so it was a patchworked version of what we're going to see from this offense. And so now that we have a wide, vast array of weapons, whether it be Jamal Banks being your, ex receiver, your prototypical possession type of receiver guy with some sneaky speed, knows how to use his body. You have your Isaiah Nair, who's also big, but quick, right? Not as physical as a Jamal Banks, but he's fast. He's a playmaker, right? 4.4 speed. And then you have your guys like Jalen Lloyd. Jalen Lloyd even of course, it was a burner last year, averaged over 30 yards per reception. But Jalen Lloyd, if you watch the spring game, he also looked a lot better in terms of just his general route running across the entirety of the route tree. And so even having guys like him who are not just going to be burners, who can beat you in the underneath, beat you in the intermediate game, that's going to be big to open up more of those deep opportunities. And Satterfield does like to, throw that deep pass. That's one of the reasons why they wanted a big body like Dylan Raiola to be able to throw that ball, push that ball into the wind and get it down the field. Even if I had money on, wouldn't pay for cable, it's damn car payment nowadays. Yes, if y'all want to go check over John DeAnimo's show over Michigan Wolverines Live, it's going on right after we get off of here at 5 p.m. my time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. So y'all go check that out if y'all want to. You're talking about TV shows. So I love how Polar Bear lays on players after a loose ball to cover. Yeah, might as well do whatever you can with that body to give you an advantage. Anybody preferring just me? Hopefully not. Yes, as much fun as the option pass was, you can't build an entire offense around that 2024. Probably excited to see the return of the concepts and break them down with joy. Yeah, 100%. Like for instance, even the touchdown against Iowa, right? The touchdown, the deep touchdown against Iowa, that was even kind of a mistake in the defensive backfield for them, because they basically just let a safety get too far down into the box and, didn't recover quick enough and got beat over the top. So now we need, we will be able to see a lot more schematics on stuff where our offense really brought them down to the box more so than, they didn't feel the threat of the deep pass game, so they thought they could get away with that. We completed it. Now we'll start to get to see more of the offensive concepts set up those things. The deep, the physical run game, the short intermediate pass, to set up that deep ball, as opposed to it just being a lapse of mistakes. And that's why it wasn't consistent last year. Again, like you saw it every now and then, but sometimes that was a mistake in the defense. Like the Iowa game, that was a mistake by the defense, bringing that safety down a little too much, too far. So bring back the triple option. I don't have my mug in here. It says run the option. I should have brought it. But all right, getting back into a little bit of the comments on what were said today at the press conferences. So another thing that kind of when they were talking, they asked a question about the sideline communication and the new headsets and who's going to be communicating with them. And the way the headset communication is going to work is the way they've talked about it. And they have NFL experience. Of course, Rule and them have a leg up in using this stuff, and it's also a Lincoln-based company, so they've used this in practices before the rule even came out. Rule is ahead of the game in terms of prepping for these in-helmet communication. So, it seems right now that they're still kind of rotating that around, juggling who's going to be doing what. I know on the offensive side of the ball, it's going to be Sat. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they said they're still rotating around to who's going to be, calling, or who's going to be letting them know that extra information in those headsets, right? And they're trying to kind of teeter this line of too much information versus not enough, because again, they don't want them, if you go up and you tell your quarterback at the line of scrimmage, like, hey, look out for, the single high safety, look out for, the right cornerback is playing press man. Look, if you give him too much, then he's going to be thinking too much, right? So it's a fine line of just giving him a couple of cues here and there, but then being able to kind of streamline that information to where they're still able to go out there and play fast, play hard without thinking, and play, the play that they would normally play without that information, without having to come and think it, because if they're thinking about it, they're going to be a half second slow and they're going to miss the play. So, but Rule said, he said that Rule said they want them to be the best sideline team in the country. And I think that's the biggest thing that has stood out to me from what we've been getting from the staff just every step of the way is attention to detail across the board, right? It's not they want to be the best team. They don't just want to be the best team in football, right? They're breaking it down, right? When you talk about, let's talk about the science of long-term goals, right? And scientifically, they say if you visualize, right? Visualization. We all know visualization works, right? But if you're just starting out the weight room, right? And you want to bench 500 pounds, right? But you bench 200. You can't then go visualize yourself benching 500 pounds and then all of a sudden just be able to bench 500 pounds. It doesn't work like that. Visualization is not a miracle worker, right? Instead, what you do is each day, right? You envision yourself doing the rep the right way, right? Going full contraction, right? But pushing a little bit more weight, maybe 5 pounds, right? But you really focus on, you visualize yourself doing that, doing the rep right, driving, doing everything the way you're supposed to with a little bit more weight, right? And then that visualization then manifests, right? That's how visualization works. It has to be an attainable goal in the short term, right? You can't just sit here and think 5 years down the road, this is where I want to be. And then all of a sudden you can make steps to getting that. No, it's got to be a step-by-step process. And that is one of the main things that stand out to me, because that's a science of visualization for a reason, right? And for them, it's not going out there and saying, we want to be the best football team in the country. No, it's like, what are we going to do to become the best football team in the country? It's not just recruiting players. No, we want to be the best recruiting team in the country. We want to be the best developmental team in the country. We want to be the best, have the best facilities. We want to have the best recovery. And it comes down to even just, we want to have the best sideline team in the country. Now, this is the process. And when we hear a lot of people talk about Matt Rule's process and all this, this is what stands out to me in the process is, what I learned in the Navy. All they tell us in Navy boot camp, attention to detail, attention to detail, attention to detail, right? We had to have 45-degree angle little folds at each corner of our bed in our sheet, right? Like it's the smallest things that don't even matter, but it's attention to detail, right? They do matter, right? Small things lead to big things, right? Because in the grand scheme of things, those small details that if you miss over and over, they snowball, right? And that's why attention to detail is important, and that is what this team is doing, right? Rule didn't come in, and that's why Rule didn't come in and say, "Hey, I'm going to fix this overnight and try to pull a bunch of people to from the transfer portal." Instead, what he did is he came in, he's like, "Listen, you hired me for this, right? I'm not here to win year one. I'm not necessarily here to win year two, but let me do my process and it's going to work." And that is why I also believe it's going to work, because it just fits the way these things work, right? It fits, in my opinion, in my eyes, and the way I've always done things. It fits that product. That's how you get to that final product. Is it starts with small wins, and that's what they've embraced every step of this way. So let me go ahead and get back. I hope Dylan's the next Peyton Manning. Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Except Northwestern's big TD was only because the corner wasn't able to pass the route over the safety. Safety got in a tough spot and have to coach too much field. Yeah, a lot of coverage gaps, or failures last year. I'm excited because we finally have a real offense this year. Exactly. We can actually, and Satterfield, now we can get to the point where if Satterfield really has, struggles this year with what we got, he can start to take some of that blame. I still think last year, I have a hard time putting anything on him last year. Michigan sign stealing helped them when they killed us last year. I'm going to be honest with you. I was at that game. I don't think it would have mattered, to be honest. I was at that game. My wife's first game I ever brought her to, right? Because I met my wife 2 years ago. So she didn't go to the Husker game with me the year prior. So she went with me the last year of the Michigan game, his first game ever. And I ended up basically from the start apologizing to her from the jump that was the first game I brought her to, because it was bad. And there was no energy in that stadium. The energy of the stadium was gone in the first half. So I was like, you didn't really get to experience like a Husker football game. So any comments on that little video snippet of Rule getting on to the players if you've seen it? Yeah, I have seen it. And for those that don't see it, it's on the Chasing 3 when he was talking about, really he wants to win now. And I think kind of fun way, I think what he was alluding to in that video, and I love the way he speaks, right? He has a way of communicating that is one in a million. He gets the point across. He speaks in a way that is very, he even stands out to us, right? He gets us fired up, right? And that doesn't always happen. But basically, this is kind of the way that they've been operating this entire thing, right? And I think that was coming down to what he was talking about with the closing practice, right? That he was getting on to him about that, and that this standard that they have set for them now, right? This stuff's not flying anymore, right? And kind of what I was talking about earlier with with the players coaching other players, with them policing. He called out specific players in there, like, "Hey, Ty, like, what are we doing here?" Right? And so what he's doing is he's sitting there and he's telling them his standard, but he's also, when you get on to, "Hey, Ty, not policing this guy," or, "Hey, you for not doing this, allowing that fight to go on over there." It's like, then those guys are like, this is on me now. I'm going to make sure that I go over to that guy, and I'm not going to, because I don't want to get called out again for this. Right. And I think, like, when he was talking to him, I think that's a big part of what he's trying to do, is he's trying to let his standard be known and be like, this is where we're at, but you stop this, right? I can't be there every step of the way. I'm going to need y'all to help each other and have each other's back. And when the lights are on, when people are here, we can't be acting like this every single time. And I think that was just kind of his plea and his thing with the players, to step it up, because it's a unique situation there, right? It was one of those situations where, they were kind of in, not like a normal practice environment, stuff like that. And so things were happening that wouldn't normal happen, with the adrenaline going and stuff like that. You don't want those things to trickle over in the game. So nip them in the butt now, get it over with, and tell them what standards you want, and that you won't have any of that. And here's who needs to step up and correct it. You older guys, you need to be responsible for these younger guys, and you're responsible for what happens on the sideline as well. So maybe one of the reasons for closing practice, if there was more of that coming, if necessary. My wife's first and last game was freaking Georgia Southern. That's a rough one. Georgia Southern was the game that I finally gave up on Scott Frost. Well, like I had not given up on Scott Frost. The way I operate, right, is I I didn't want to be the guy that was publicly, posting about him. I wasn't on YouTube at the time, but I want to be the guy that was publicly posting, blasting Scott Frost during his time here, because I didn't want to be that guy that looked dumb when, let's say one year he did turn around. Now that last year when he started losing, that was kind of the final straw for me. Before then, I just kind of didn't want to criticize him before, or just because I feel like at a certain point, some of us, when we start to kind of really start criticizing some of these guys and these players, we almost start rooting against them in a way because we want to be right. And I don't like I just don't like that feeling. So for me, it was one of those things where it's like, I'm not in a position where I have to give any kind of fair, analysis on it, right? Or give a realistic analysis. So I was just like, I'm going to believe in him. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's just keep this rocking and rolling. And yeah, but that Georgia Southern game broke me. I'd never been like, I wasn't mad because I used to get mad when we lost back then, but I was more so sad. That was the first time I was just kind of like sad. Like I was just like, what now? Because I was going to the Oklahoma game. I think we had a bye and then the Oklahoma game. And so I was flying out there for the Oklahoma game, and I didn't even want to go at first because I was just like, this is going to be so bad. Like, because we lost to Georgia Southern and Scott Frost, we were seeing no improvement. So why was I to expect anything different? But at least when they let him go, and we had the interim staff in there, that gave me a little something exciting because I was like, at least we get to see a little something different. So yeah, that Georgia Southern game, man, that's a rough one. We all wanted Frost to see, but he wasn't ready for the big show. That, and he treated his job like he was still a college student. That was the thing. He didn't have. I don't think he had the work ethic to be a head coach at a school like Nebraska, right? Because the amount of work, you see what ruled, the amount of work it's taken him, and he is a grinder, and his staff is a bunch of grinders. You see the amount of work that is taking them to really kind of, even start to make some headway progress in this. And that's where you see how much of an uphill battle Scott Frost had, that he would have never climbed that mountain. He didn't even start. I think, after a while he got paid, and he just kind of gave up and was hoping it would work itself out. And that's just not the way this works. We were there too. Coach knew he was toast by the time we reached the escalators on the way down from the 600 level. Yeah, that was basically had to happen after that one. That Georgia Southern game was I would say, though, the other one that hurt me really badly was the Michigan game, talking more like 2021-ish. Michigan game in Lincoln. I know that all hurt us, where Adrian Martinez fighting for the first down, they fumble the ball, they get the field goal. That was the game. My phone broke after that game. I'm not saying I broke it, but I'm saying it broke after that game. So we were there too. Oklahoma with Chins getting schooled by a first-year head coach didn't feel much better. Yeah, that was the I don't understand why Chins kind of. Ken Anders' philosophy was all broken to begin with. Bend, don't break was his philosophy, but we always bent and broke. So I never knew what he was trying to do there. But yeah, the Oklahoma game was fun for the first half of the first quarter, because we were in it for a little bit. I believe what was 7-7, 7-0. So and then it got taken out of hand, of course. Dylan Gabriel. Frost hired Coach Raiola and had some great players in the hard villains. And another thing at that game too, Tommy Hill, right? At that game, at that Oklahoma game, Tommy Hill, that was the play on the right sideline where he kind of gave up on that play down the right sideline where Dylan Gabriel, because I was front row on that sideline. Dylan Gabriel ran right freaking past me, asshole. But he, that was the play where Tommy Hill kind of I think let up, on that play, and we're all kind of like, what the heck is he doing? Like, why are these players not giving their effort out here? And that is one of the other reasons why it stood out to me. Tommy Hill is one of my favorite players on this team, just because of the turnaround he's had. But that stood out to me there too, because it happened right in front of me again. If in case I mentioned that, Dylan Gabriel running right in front of me. But all right, guys. Well, I am at my hour. I had a fun time talking with y'all. So I didn't get to everything I wanted to get to, but again, I will be having this stuff coming out probably in a video, depending on if we get more news over the course of this week or not. August 17th. David Sanders will be making his decision. So August 17th, he will be choosing between Tennessee, Nebraska, Ohio State, and oh my gosh, Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State, Nebraska. There we go. I wasn't sure who missed. It's looking like Tennessee's a little bit ahead. Of course, I would have felt a lot better in Nebraska that second visit. Nebraska did everything they could on their visit, though. David Sanders Loved everything about the visit. It went about as well as good. Like I said, just Tennessee having that last visit, it's really hard to tell what happened behind the scenes of that. Michael Terry, again, will be announcing hopefully before the season starts. He wants to announce before his football season starts. He wants to announce the summer so he can focus on the football. But I would say Nebraska's probably in third place on the Michael Terry sweepstakes. So stay tuned for that. And I'll just kind of dive in this deeper. Was it Trev who hired Raiola? Frost hired Coach Raiola and had some great players, no hard feelings. That one we do not know. Eliminating about the past, F all the negative. Let's win, baby. Thanks, Justin in chat. Appreciate you, Mike. Appreciate you, Ken. Thanks, Justin, for hopping in here. Appreciate y'all as always. And again, y'all stay tuned this week for the videos. And like I said, I will be having a hangout very soon if y'all are interested in that. I'm trying to plan that probably, hopefully, I think I might want to do it the game week, the week of the UTEP game. I might try to have a hangout where I have a bunch of subscribers and, people come on, and then eventually, because I will start memberships on this channel, I do kind of want to almost do like a weekly thing with channel members. So right now, I'll open it to everybody. We all hang out, talk some football. Like I said, it won't be recorded. It won't be live streamed. We're just all going to be in kind of like a hangout, Google Hangout or something like that, Discord, and just chopping it up, talking Husker football. So stay tuned for that. I am working on getting that all cooked up for y'all, and got some other stuff coming up for y'all. But we are over my time here, so I will let y'all get back to the rest of your Tuesday. And I appreciate everybody who takes the time to stop in and listen to me talk and ask questions, join the chat, join the conversation. Y'all make it a lot of fun for me. I couldn't do it without y'all, so I appreciate everybody who constantly supports me here. And with that being said, I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.